Good evening. I'm Enari Darklord and welcome to Churikua. Tonight, in our Legends compilation, you will listen to the legends of Cantuña, the Jester from Malahide Castle, the Spanish Priest and Esteco. I also remind you that among each legend you will listen some musical intermissions. So remember, enjoy this because the night awaits for you. While I was walking through St. Francis Church in Quito, a man in a folkloric outfit greeted me and motioned me to come into the church. Once there, I didn't see him. I thought that maybe he dismissed among people or that maybe he had an important job there. Once out, I saw him again at the gate with a stone in his hand. For me, it was kind of strange to see him like that. Curiosity got the better of me, and I asked him, "Excuse me, what are you doing with that stone in your hands?" "I only defend what is mine. I also defend my ideals." "What's your name?" "Cantuña." After this, he just turned round and left. When I turned round, I looked for him and I didn't see him. It was strange, so without knowing who that man was, I decided to ask someone who seems to be from those people who held at Mass. But their answer was that they didn't know anyone with a name like that. I asked a little bit more, and to my surprise, a guy I've asked was a tourist guide. He told me that he didn't know anyone with that name. Nevertheless, there was a Cantuña that he knew. Cantuña, according to what he told me, was an Indian who had been entrusted with the task of building the church for a short or unreasonable date by which it should be finished. Of course, he would receive excellent pay in return. The construction was going well, but the deadline was near, and the construction was not even close of being finished. And as he became desperate to finish the church, the devil appeared before him. "Cantuña, I know your anguish. There is something you want, and you need my help too much." "That's right. I need this church to be finished as soon as possible." "I understand. This church will be finished very soon, but in exchange, you will give me your soul." "I will. I only ask you to finish as soon as possible, and I will give you my soul when the last stone has been laid." Likewise, the devil summoned his infernal entourage, and construction proceeded at an extremely rapid pace. As he watched the construction progress and saw what seemed to be a predictable end, he took one of those stones and hit it. When the construction came to completion, the devil told him, "Cantuña, my part of the deal is done. Now, I ask you to fulfill yours." "Wait, it's not like that. This stone has not been placed," he said, while showing the stone he kept with him. Grudge grimly, he reluctantly accepted his defeat, and after lamenting that he had been defeated by a human being, he left. So, Cantuña defeated the devil. What happened to him then? No one knows. Perhaps just God knows. Once The explanation was over. I accepted his proposal of a tour around the church and some other nearby landmarks. Although I like to think that Cantuña is still here, watching over his work and happy about his feat and his victory. When I got the chance to travel to Ireland, I took advantage of it and taking a tour that takes you to those amazing places. The very first thing I thought once in Dublin was looking for landmarks to visit. With a couple of references from the net and suggestions, I decided to visit Malahide Castle. I booked a tour and got amazed of its beauty, its gardens, and the lighted galleries. And overcoming all the ghost. Before starting the tour, I asked for the toilet. Once out, I heard some jingles and the voice of someone whispering and laughing. At the time I realized my jacket, which was tied to my hips, was stepped and hung on an open door. I thought it was weird, and just then a guide came and asked me that if I was ready because the tour was up to start. While we were going through the castle, on another part of it, I felt like someone was pulling me the jeans, and such as someone was trying to catch my attention, putting their fingers on my shoulder. I turned around, and no one was there. Every time I heard jingles, steps, and the feeling of an entity following me any place, and even thought in some places photobombs seemed to be seen until our guide told us the story of Puck. Among those ghosts that inhabit the castle, Puck is one of the most famous. He is a dwarf that could become a jester from the lords of the castle. According to what he said, he was in charge of making people laugh and sentry the castle. The kingdom of Henry VIII, and due to her rebel record, Eleanor Fitzgerald, Countess of Desmond, became a prisoner in the castle. Puck fell in love with her, an extraordinary woman for that time. Nevertheless, he died in a snowy and cold December night, stabbed, and in his very last breath, and still wearing, as the jester he was, he promised to haunt the place. Whereas we were moving to another part of the castle, I decided to tell, and with certain shame, to the guide about my experience, and he told me that surely Puck was playing me a prank. Yet he likes doing jokes, playing pranks, and his favorite ones were the photobombs. Certainly, I didn't know what to think about. I tried to avoid thinking about that during the rest of the tour. I don't know if a broken heart, interest involved, or just betrayal were the cause, but I felt pity for poor Puck dying in the freezing cold. I remember this story that my great-grandfather told me a long time ago. This story was about when he once entered the cave of the Cask Hill. At that time, he was a very intrepid and brave young man. He had agreed with them, his friends, to meet at a point along the road, and from there all together would go through the cave with the necessary cautions. Unfortunately, that day something happened to all of them. Family emergencies, some urgent issues to attend to. Only he and his friend Teodoro were the only ones who went into the cave. He described to me those wonders inside the cave that they were able to see both by the sunlight at the entrance to the cave and those that a little dim light allowed them to admire. He described everything around them in great detail, but there was something that caught the attention of both of them. A flow of air blowing, as if there was a way out, and they could hear very pleasant chants. They did not fully understand the lyrics or what it was being sung, but for them, it gave them a calm and disturbing feeling. Just thinking about who would be there in that cave. They continued to go deeper. The chanting became clearer and clearer. It was Latin, but they did not find anyone, at least not as far as they intended to go. They decided to go out and to research more about it by asking all the older people and the priest of Tegucigalpa. The priest listened to them with astonishment, but did not know how to answer their questions. A few months later, some nuns arrived from Spain. They asked to be welcome on the side, arguing that a relative on God's road had called them, and also remarked their great need to visit the cave of Casque. The nuns, with the help of my great-grandfather and Teodoro, entered the cave. They were able to go away or wait for a while, whereas they were finishing inside. After a few hours, the nuns came out and told the priest that there was a Spanish priest who had celebrated one of the first masses, if not the first, as chaplain in the expedition of Christopher Columbus in Punta Castinas in 1502. No one knew the name of the priest who died there, taking into account those who died in the evangelization of the region, and it is believed that the one who died must have refused the extermination of the Indians by taking refuge inside or succumbing to his wounds while trying to escape. The church had no record of his name, and the nuns refused to confess him except in secret confession. Upon hearing their testimony, the priest made the decision to bless the entrance to the cave, and this was carried out in 1936. Many people gave it religious connotations, and there is even talk about it by pilgrimages to go there. We do not know if the soul of that priest rests in peace today, but at least he watches over those faithful, or rather the descendants of those faithfuls that he surely protected with his life. I will never forget that when I was little, my parents always told me that I should help others. We are from the province of Salta, Argentina. I remember once when I was in the park and when I was riding my bike, I always fell down. So my grandmother always brought band-aids with her. One girl fell down when she tripped and scratched herself. I gave her some of my water to soak the wound, and she gave me the last bandage for that girl to make her feel better. She gave us a smile and left. When I went to the park and saw a similar situation and no one helping with a bandage or anything else, I couldn't help but I remember my grandmother. When I asked her why she always said that we should help others, she told me that someday we might need that help, unless it happened to you, like the population of Esteco. When I asked her about it, she told me that Esteco was a city with fertile land, beautiful and great wealth that had been founded in 1609. It immediately became a prosperous city, full of life. However, the settlers were carried away by greed. No one helped anyone. Everyone was very haughty, and the masters mistreated the slaves. A missionary arrived, asking for asylum and food. He knocked door to door, but no one, no matter how opulent the house was, they were not able to give him at least a little food or a bed to sleep on. Once he reached the outskirts of the city, he found a house, very humble, but a woman who lived there with her son was able to take him in. She sacrificed the only hen they had to serve him something to eat, and they took him in for the night. Grateful, the next morning he continued in the village, preaching the importance of generosity, charity, humbleness, and humility. But no one paid any attention to him. Everyone either ignored him or laughed at him in mockery. Returning with such dismay, he confessed to his hostess that he was a prophet, that Esteco was destined to be lost, to disappear, for its lack of generosity, avarice, and excess of vanity. In gratitude for her hospitality, he would show her the way, that whatever happened, she must not look back, or else punishment would overtake them. They must escape as soon as possible. On the way, the rumbling of an earthquake, cracks in the floor, and heartbreaking screams. Shuddering earthquake that took place on September 13th in 1692 that had started at 11, and the woman and her son followed the missionary, but the cries of pain and despair of the victims made her turn around, and instantly both were transformed into a statue. A statue that, according to what it said, on the anniversary of the tragedy, is allowed to escape to their destiny and visiting the city of Salta. Honestly, it sounds to me like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, but the curiosity to see that poor woman who succumbed to curiosity encouraged me to follow mine, and If the next September 13th they can finally reach Salta safe and sound.